right. Week 10 recap. Let's start this one off. Dolphins versus Ravens. Obviously, the Dolphins coming away with quite the surprising win of a score of 22 to 10 on Thursday night. Tua came into that game for Jacoby Brissett and ultimately carried them to the win. The defense, I think, did a really nice job of containing Lamar Jackson, especially when it comes to his ability to get out of the pocket and, of course, run with the ball. I think the defense, combined with a good performance by Tua, ultimately helped the Dolphins win that one. Titans versus Saints. Obviously, no Alvin Kamara and no Derrick Henry. This was a pretty close game most of the way. The Saints were able to, or actually the Titans. My apologies. The Titans came out with a 23-21 win over the New Orleans Saints. Obviously, had Trevor Siemian in for the Saints, so that was a bit. I guess they sort of lacked some talent in the QB spot, you could say, as opposed to Ryan Tannehill. Ultimately, the Titans came away with the win, 23-21. Very close game most of the way, and the Titans showed that they're able to close out close games, especially when you're going to need something like that when it comes playoff time. Now, Bills versus Jets. This is really a big game. This was a big game for the Jets to see what they could do against a team like Buffalo after, of course, just going and actually winning a couple games. Robert Saleh, he's seeing a lot of criticism now, especially after this loss 45-17. Josh Allen played well. Stephon Diggs played great. And ultimately, the Bills just dominated the Jets most of the way. Now, one of the more surprising games, Lions versus Steelers. This was one we saw on Sunday that I was watching. Steelers versus Lions, tie game, of course, 16-16. It was very interesting overtime. The Lions had the chance to win. Obviously, their kicker did not come through. It was not a good kick by any means. And the Steelers, of course, they had that chance with the clock winding down to win the game. It looked like they were getting to field goal range, and Pat Freiermuth fumbled it, and the Lions recovered. And that was pretty much that. Tie game, 16-16. At least the Lions didn't lose, but for the Steelers, they wish they could have this one back. Jaguars versus Colts, of course. The Colts started off huge with the blocked punt and taking it in the end zone, and pretty much they didn't look back. They won this game 23-17. And a big win for the Colts. Now, Buccaneers versus Washington. Now, early in that game, we saw Washington was up very early. They took a 6-0 lead. They took either a 12 or 13-0 lead, and they were able to contain and hold that win. As for Washington, though, they did unfortunately lose. Chase Young, of course, their premier edge rusher. I'm not sure if the details on the injury have been released, but it does look like the possibility of a torn ACL is very real. So with that being said, let's move on to something I really don't want to talk about: Browns versus Patriots. Obviously, me as a Browns fan, I'd say this is one of the most disappointing games I've ever watched. Just getting blown out, turned the game off probably after the third quarter. Didn't really want to watch it. Bench Baker. I'm going to take a little extra time on this one. I think if you're a Browns fan, and we all saw the thing with Myles Garrett criticizing the coaching, especially Joe Woods, a guy who I've criticized since last year. I think Baker, when healthy, he's got the talent to do what you need. He fits the scheme really well. It's just his inconsistency is really his biggest issue. And, of course, health this year. But, yeah, I don't want to talk too much about that because I really hate talking about it. But you have to give credit to the victor. Mac Jones had a really good game. Jacoby Myers gets his first ever NFL touchdown. I didn't even know that when I saw that stat. I was very, very surprised. Yeah, all around, the Patriots game planned really well, especially against Myles Garrett, who did have a sack. But the rest of that way, they contained him really well. Next game, another blowout win, Falcons versus Cowboys. The Cowboys won 43-3, and CeeDee Lamb really had quite the game. Personally had him in fantasy, got me almost 30 points. And yeah, Cowboys played all around an incredible game, and they pretty much dominated the Falcons since the start of the game. Panthers versus Cardinals. This was the return of Super Cam Newton. Even though he didn't play much, it was really P.J. Walker. But Cam Newton did have 2 touchdowns, but P.J. Walker played a game, especially since the Cardinals didn't have Kyler Murray. But he played well enough, and the Panthers actually won 34-10, which is pretty good, especially considering the opponent. Vikings versus Chargers. The Chargers have not had a great stretch over these past few games. Now losing to the Vikings by a touchdown. Justin Jefferson had himself a game, and this was a very interesting one. Next, we have another very interesting one. Seahawks versus Packers. Of course, the return of both Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers. And it looked like Rodgers, he wasn't playing great, neither did Russell Wilson. Of course, they got shut out 17-0. The Packers took that win. Not much to say there. Aaron Jones, what looks like he's got a mild sprained MCL, just so fantasy owners know that. Next game, Eagles-Broncos. So after the Broncos came out on top against the Cowboys on what I believe was a score of 30-8, they come out and lose. Eagles, Devontae Smith had himself a good 2-touchdown game. And, the Eagles played a really well game. Jalen Hurts did pretty well. So, Chiefs versus Raiders Sunday night, I mean, the game was close. Of course, the Raiders, Hunter Renfrow was getting the ball there. I'm pretty sure at one point it was 17-14 for the Chiefs. And that was all the Raiders would have. The Chiefs would go on to score 41. And, 41-14 final score at Allegiant Stadium. Now, this game hasn't happened. This game is actually going to start in minutes. Rams versus 49ers. This should be a fun one. Obviously, the Rams making debuts for both Von Miller and Odell Beckham Jr., who looks like Odell could be returning some punts. That'd be fun to watch. Being a Browns fan, it's kind of bittersweet to watch him with a different team. But I guess I was one of those guys who didn't really want him with us anymore. But with that being said, that's our Sunday and Thursday night Week 10 recap. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. I'll see you guys next time, hopefully on the podcast.